Today my project is a teapot fairy house. Here you see I have a cracked jar that I don't know how it got broken, but it just got cracked, so I'm gonna upcycle it. And I have a small collection of toilet paper rolls which I have hoarded for many years. If by small you mean a shoebox worth, but you know, I'm sure they'll come in useful at some point, right? I'm not a hoarder, I'm an artist. Here, to give the glass some texture, I have added some white glue to the outside and I'm letting it dry. Here you see me applying the paper clay. The paper clay is a combination of crushed up newspapers and drywall compound, as well as some white glue and other stuff. I'll link a video in the description where you can watch a video and a tutorial on how to make it yourself. It's pretty simple and unfortunately won't keep forever, but if you put it in the fridge, it'll keep for a couple of weeks. But let me tell you, it stinks when it goes bad. The paper clay attaches itself really easily to the dried white glue, and here I am just quickly drawing in the door and the windows because you have to get rid of those. And I also proceeded to wipe off the excess white glue in those areas because there was nothing stuck to them, so I didn't need anything on them. Here you see the teapot that has been fully dried. I used the oven on a low heat. We have a oven with a fan, so I had the fan going the whole time, which really sped up the process. I'm pretty impressed. The downside of using the oven is that, of course, your house will stink for a bit, but that's what windows are for. Here I'm using kitchen paper to give the teapot the wooden texture. I think if I had been a bit smarter about this, I would have taken the kitchen paper and separated it into layers so it'd be thinner. But, you know, live and learn. After letting it dry, it looks pretty good, and I decide to start adding paint. This is where it gets a bit complicated. You have to play with the colors and the layers and your dry brushing techniques to get a reasonably good looking tree, right? I just use a combination of a lot of flat brushes and a few really ugly brushes from the dollar store to get a decent finish. I think with practice I could get a lot faster at this. I spent way too much time trying to decide which colors of browns to use. Now, to paint this, you use a dark undercoat and dry brush some lighter browns on top of it. I spent way too much time trying to choose the colors, but, you know, live and learn. Dry brushing a lighter color of brown onto the top really gives it some dimension, and it ends up looking really good in the final pictures. Clearly I have to work on my lighting. I'll get to it. I'm adding some green, both metallic and matte, to make it look like I have moss growing all over the house. And as you can see, I've draped polymer clay in certain very aesthetically pleasing ways, and then I have let them dry. It took a few hours. Here I'm painting them green and giving them some texture. I'll add some leaves a bit further on. But as you can see, you just add the colors until you're happy with the result. It is kind of important to make them individually because it is such a personalized project that you can't just make them beforehand. As for the roof, it was basically a circle which I cut a wedge into and then glued it all together, so it is polymer clay. I added a bit of a chimney, and then I cut up an old cereal box to make into tiles, which I will paint shortly. To make the windows, I rolled out a bit more polymer clay, let it dry, painted it blue, and then gently placed them in the windows. As you can see here, it was a very touch and go. You just do what you can and hope that the result looks good. This process did take a lot of trial and error, and I will say it was fairly frustrating. I had to wash my hands constantly so they wouldn't be totally covered in paint in the video, but as you can see by my thumb there, it's already dipped in blue, and really I couldn't leave the house without vigorously rubbing my hands to get rid of some of the paint, otherwise I'd look like a crazy person. Here I have all 5 windows done. They look pretty good. The glue will dry on clear and it won't be a problem. As for the roof, I fiddled around with a few colors. I wasn't quite happy with the orange, so I quickly turned it into a brown, which I later dry brushed some darker browns onto. Here you see I'm changing colors quite a bit. I couldn't really decide what color of brown to use for the roof. I wanted it to complement the teapot, but I didn't want it to be the same color. I initially started with a more orangey brown, but then quickly switched that to a more reddish color. Here I've prepared some black paint to dry brush onto the edges of the shingles to give them a more aged look and some dimension. You see, we have a problem. We don't have any stairs to our little home. So I made some. Using some green tape and a piece of cardboard, I made a mold. Not really a mold, but a shape to build on, and I'm adding the paper clay. I will attach this using some more paper clay and quite a bit of glue. At the same time, I made some sides that will make the house look good from any angle. This was a pretty tedious process as the paper clay did not want to stick to the tape as well as it did to the glass or to any other part of this project. Here I'm reinforcing it with some white glue that you see in the bottom corner, and it is looking pretty solid. It did take a bit to dry because I couldn't throw it into the oven. And here we go, the final product. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I'm very happy with the colors. I love my stonework there around the door, and the stairs look pretty good. If anything needs work, it's my camera focus. The interior is that glass jar you saw at the beginning, and the roof is made out of polymer clay, so theoretically you could stick a candle in there. There is a vent in the chimney that would let oxygen exchange, but to be safe, better just use some LEDs. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you feel like it, hit that subscribe button. There'll be more videos like this coming out soon.